Our last topic in this chapter is the most important model in modern finance. So the capital asset pricing model. Some people call it CAPM or CAPM. Now, what is the capital asset pricing model? The capital asset pricing model is a very simple linear model that describes the relationship between risk and return. And the capital asset pricing model says not all the risk needs to be compensated. Only the systematic risk or the portfolio risk or market risk, whichever name you prefer to call it, only the systematic risk deserves compensation. Diversifiable risk does not deserve any compensation because that can be eliminated by a well-diversified portfolio. Now, the return for any portfolio or any security is a linear function of that security or that portfolio's systematic risk. And let's look at the capital asset pricing model. So the equation on the left-hand side, RI, that stands for the return of any security or portfolio I. And then on the right-hand side of the equation, first we have RRF, which stands for the return on the risk-free asset. And in reality, a lot of people use treasury bills as a proxy for risk-free assets. So the first term on the right-hand side is the return on the risk-free assets. And then plus the product of two things. In the parentheses, RM stands for the return on a market portfolio. And market portfolio means a portfolio that includes all the securities traded in the market. In reality, a lot of people use SP 500 as a proxy for a market portfolio. So in the parentheses, the return of a market portfolio minus the return on the risk-free assets. Now, the difference between these two returns, we call it the market risk premium because it's a risk premium of market portfolio over risk-free assets. Now, market risk premium, that's the term in the parentheses, multiplied by beta of security or portfolio I. Beta stands for the systematic risk or market risk or portfolio risk of security I. So security I's return is risk-free rate plus market risk premium times security I's systematic risk beta. And we can also rewrite the model to a different version. So by subtracting the risk-free assets on both sides of the equation. That way, we get the following equation. On the left-hand side of the model, we have security I's return minus risk-free assets return. So we can also view this as a security I's risk premium. So because security I has some risk, now also the risk-free assets offer some return. So for the security I's return, how much more compensation does security I get over the risk-free assets? That security I's risk premium is RI minus RRF. So that's the security I's risk premium. Now on the right-hand side is the market risk premium, which is the market portfolio's return RM minus risk-free assets return RRF. So market risk premium multiplied by the beta of security I. Now, why do we want to write the capital asset pricing model in the second version? Well, beta of I is the systematic risk of security I. It also measures the relative riskness of security I to the market. So beta is a relative risk measure to the market. Use some example. Let's say security I's beta is 1, positive 1. What does that mean? That means relative to the market, security I's risk is 1, which is the same as the market portfolio's risk. Okay? Now, if the market portfolio gets a return, which is the RM, and then for the market portfolio's risk, that risk deserves a compensation as market risk premium, which is RM minus risk-free assets return, RRF. So use a numerical example. Let's say market portfolio's return is 15%. Risk-free assets is 5%. In this case, the market risk premium is 15% minus 5%, which is 10%. So for the market portfolio, because it has some risk, the compensation is 10% for the amount of risk that market portfolio has. Now, if security I's beta is 1, that means security I is as risky as the market portfolio. Now, for the risk the market portfolio has, market portfolio gets a compensation of 10%. Now, if the security I's risk is the same as the market portfolio, how much compensation or risk premium the security I deserve? Well, if the security I's risk is the same as the market portfolio's risk, then security I's risk premium should be the same as the market portfolio's risk premium. So if the market risk premium is 10%, security I's risk premium should also be 10%. Now, if beta takes a value of 2, positive 2, what does that mean? That means relative to the market, security I's risk is twice as much as the market portfolio's risk. So security I is twice risky as the market. Now, if the market gets a 10% risk premium for its risk, and security I is twice as risky as the market, how much does the security I deserve in terms of the risk premium? Well, then twice of the market portfolio's risk premium. So if the market risk premium is 10%, security I's beta is 2, then security I's risk premium should be 20%. Now, if security I's beta take a value of 0.5, what does that mean? That means security I's systematic risk is half as risky as the market portfolio's risk. And if the market portfolio gets 10% risk premium for its risk, then security I's risk premium should be half of 10%, should be 5%, because its risk is half of the market portfolio's risk. So that's the reason that we write the capital asset pricing model as a risk premium term on both sides of the equation, because it is very intuitive. And in the capital asset pricing model, beta measures the stock's market risk, portfolio risk, or systematic risk. And it shows how risky that stock is relative to the market portfolio. And it also indicates how risky that stock is when it's held in a well-diversified portfolio. And the capital asset pricing model described a relationship between a security's risk premium and its systematic risk. And early on, we mentioned when beta equals 1, that means the security or portfolio's risk is the same as the market. Now, when the beta or systematic risk is higher than 1, that means that security is more risky than the market portfolio. So in reality, we call these stocks high beta stocks. And they are very popular when the market is going up. Now, when beta is less than 1, then these stocks, we call them defensive stocks. And in the downside market, then these defensive stocks become more popular. Statistically, on average, most of the stocks have a beta that range from 0.5 to 1.5. And statistically, it's hard or almost impossible to find a beta with a negative value. Although theoretically it does exist, but in reality, it's just hard to find a stock has a negative beta. In this chapter, we talk about risk and return. And first, we discuss how the investment return is calculated. How do we analyze the holding period return? Secondly, we talk about risk, investment risk, which includes both overall risk, or we also call it standalone risk, and the portfolio risk. Sometimes we call it market risk or systematic risk, which is measured by beta. And lastly, we discuss the most important model in modern finance, the capital asset pricing model, which describes the relationship between risk and return. And the capital asset pricing model says only the systematic risk deserves a compensation. And the risk premium, which is the compensation, is a linear relationship of the systematic risk of a security.